everyone. It is Dr. Shaleigh here, and I am so excited to, I guess, be co hosting, is what we would call this,
Yeah.
an episode with Brooke, who is a licensed marriage and family therapist. And I don't know how we haven't crossed paths sooner. Actually, I'm really frustrated about it. But I'll let Brooke talk about her practice here in a second. Just wanted to introduce her because she is the owner of Nurture and Be, which is a counseling service, I guess we would call it.
Mhm.
But she has her own practice. Actually, you had multiple locations, but you also do online.
Yeah.
But you service Georgia and Florida, which is super cool. So love that you have more of a holistic perspective, a whole family based model of care. And I'm going to let you just talk a little bit about what you guys do before we jump into a plethora of questions that I have for you that I think everyone's going to love. So just go ahead, give us like a elevator speech about you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited to be co-hosting on
Mhm.
this. I always just love getting together with people who have similar energy, similar minds, all things postpartum. But a little bit about me. So, Nurture and Be is our practice. It was founded 3.5 years ago. And I always think about the timeline in reference to my daughter because I opened my practice on a Friday and then had my daughter that Monday.
Which is
So,
wild.
yeah, and it really was, but I think there's something so creative that happens during that postpartum season, and, I just had more space, and I was going through in a huge identity shift, but yeah, so I opened it alongside my daughter. It's a medication management and therapy practice, but we do have a collaborative and holistic lens. And so what that means is we are often talking to chiropractors and OBs and functional medicine providers and really just anybody who's in your circle of care. We want to talk to them, we want to get to know them, and we want to talk about how we can serve our clients. So that's what makes our practice a little bit different. Like you said, we're in Peachtree City, Georgia physically. We used to be in Buford, but we just shut that part down. But we still serve all of Georgia and now all of Florida because I moved back home to Sarasota.
Which your weather is probably well, actually, our weather is great here today.
Oh, good.
But it's probably gonna drop here soon, so, I'm not gonna get used to it, but I'm sure you're loving the Florida sunshine.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. We go to the beach. Like, we are
Mhm.
both, I'm a Pisces. We're just
Okay.
water people.
Yes.
Yes. So it's been so good.
Love that. Well, and again, thank you for taking the time. I know you're so busy. Us trying to coordinate this was a little tough, but we finally are making it happen.
Yeah.
So in regards to your practice, I know I really want to dive into some questions because we as chiropractors, we work with the body as a whole, right? So I want everyone on the physical, chemical, and the emotional state of being to be functioning the way that it's supposed to.
Yep.
And that's where sometimes we run into roadblocks
Yeah.
and the body is not healing the way that it's supposed to. And so with my knowledge and background in psychology and as a previous therapist, I have always loved working with therapists who look at the body from a holistic perspective.
Yeah.
So one thing that I know we talked about last time, especially speaking more so on pregnancy and postpartum, because that's biasly the season of life that I'm in.
Yes.
um, so, what would you say is a big, like one of the main things that you see whenever you're working with a woman postpartum, or what are some things they can prep for during
Mhm.
pregnancy so that they don't have as drastic of a shift? Because I mean, hormones you can't control;
Mhm.
they plummet. So, what are some things that maybe they could put in their toolbox ahead of time to prep for
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, this is always like every time a client comes in postpartum, this is the question that they're asking me is like, what kind of tools can I have? Right. But the prep really starts in pregnancy. And I think it's something that we plan for the baby shower, we plan for like the birth even, but then when it comes to postpartum, we're like, "Oh, like we'll figure that part out. Like
Mhm.
I'll just figure out the newborn care." But really there's just so much postpartum care for the mom and the family unit overall that needs to be considered. So, I mean, I think we could definitely go into all the different tools and maybe we'll get to that part, but I think really the biggest thing that I tell anybody is you have to craft your care team. Like that is just a non-negotiable and that does start like during pregnancy with chiropractic
Mhm.
care and making sure that you have your birth team ready to go, but also it extends to the birth and then postpartum, right? Like lactation consultants and who's going to help you with really everything, sleep, cleaning, meal prep, like
Getting out of bed.
exactly, right? As you're
Mhm.
physically recovering and healing, and we don't know how birth is gonna go and what your recovery might look like, but what about even friends? Like, who are gonna be the people that you can just feel like you again, right? There's a massive identity shift that happens in the postpartum period, especially going from 0 to 1 child, and then again from, like, 1 to 2. I was actually even shocked myself, like, going from 1 child to 2, the identity shift that then happened again, where I was like, "Well, I'm
Mhm.
a mom of 2, and that feels different than being a mom of 1." And so there's just so much, it really just rocks your world in a way that I just don't think that we can even prepare for. I can tell you over and over and over again, right, you're about to have your first, like, it is gonna rock your world in ways that you can't even imagine, and you can be like, "Yes, Brooke, I know," and then you get there and you're like, "Whoa,
Yeah,
this is
just
what she
kidding,
was
I didn't
talking
know. Yeah.
about." Yeah. And so I think just part of the prep is just really starting with who's gonna be a part of your care circle.
Okay. Well, and I'm glad you brought that up because I see a lot of women in pregnancy. One,
Mhm.
for because a lot of pelvic pain starts in pregnancy, and that's the first
Yep.
introduction that some women have to chiropractic care. Um, and then we educate and talk about how it helps regulate and make their nervous system function better because your baby is it's borrowing your nervous system when you're
Mhm.
whenever you're pregnant.
Mhm.
So if you don't feel safe and secure or you don't feel like you have the tools that you need or you don't
Yeah.
feel a certain sense of safety, then
Mhm.
you could do everything on the planet possible. You could take the best prenatals, you could have the
Mhm.
best OBGYN, you could do everything right, but it doesn't matter if you're not taking care of yourself. So
Mhm.
we're very big on when women come in for care, if they're pregnant, we create a postpartum plan for them for at least 3 months after. And I know
Mhm.
you guys do or recommend something similar, or at least I shouldn't assume, but um, do you recommend women starting services with you during pregnancy or when's the best time, I should say?
Yeah, in my dream world, women come in really like yeah, I mean, in my dream world, if we're getting real, before trying to
Before
conceive.
pregnancy, yes, same.
Yes,
We agree.
right, and then, like, I definitely we would love to see them during pregnancy because that's where we can really prepare and prep for postpartum, but
Yeah.
I'm even curious for you, like, what kind of signs do you notice in somebody's body that tell you that maybe their nervous system
Mhm.
has been in survival mode or, like, they do need that extra level of
Yeah,
care?
that That's a great question because then I could help better direct them on, hey, I'm going to work with you on this side. But I also highly recommend that to prevent that huge hormonal crash after. And
Mhm.
of course, I think this entire conversation is around preventing postpartum depression
Mhm.
long term too,
Mhm.
because it is so common and not talked about.
Mhm.
And so many women, I think, don't understand what's happening in their body during that time. And they're overwhelmed with trying to learn how to breastfeed and trying to get their newborn to sleep for more than 1 hour at a time and
Mhm.
trying to teach their husband how to hold the child without its neck falling off
Mhm.
or its head falling off its body. Um, there's just so many aspects, like you said, that you can only prepare so much for. But the one thing you do have control over is your team and how you have support around you during that time. So, going back to signs that I noticed, that there's
Mhm.
some major ones that I think people write off as, oh, that's just normal. That happens naturally,
Mhm.
right? Normal and common are two very different things.
Mhm.
So for me, I see in moms specifically a lot of pelvic tension. So the upper part of your spine and the lower part are the most important parts of your entire body. That will tell you so much about how everything is moving and regulating and how
Mhm.
your brain is talking to the muscles creating abnormal or weakened tension in the body. Obviously, we don't expect everybody to be perfect, but at the same time, the body keeps the score. So it'll hide stress in certain parts of the body. And most likely, it's in that
Mhm.
sacral region, so your buttock area, and then up here in your upper cervical spine. So, where a lot of my moms carry their tension is upper. But
Mhm.
pregnancy, it switches and they carry it in their hips, which is where the baby lives, which is not good.
Mhm.
So a lot of moms will come to me because they're having that pelvic tension. or pain. We can say that
Mhm,
word. And or they have a breech baby. And so the baby isn't able to descend into the pelvis the way that it's supposed to. And that is a nervous system issue. That is
mhm,
the body is holding on to tension in an abnormal pattern. And my job is to try and help alleviate that so that the baby feels safe enough to descend. And
mhm,
a lot of that comes with working, whether it's whatever I can do on my end, but then
mhm,
also working with a care team outside of our practice so that they can get additional support, creating a safer environment for the baby to feel safe to come into. I know
mhm.
I rambled. Hopefully that makes sense, but there's just
Yeah.
there's multiple layers to it.
No, absolutely, and I'm even thinking, like, how these things combine because so
Mhm.
really the number one complication of childbirth is postpartum depression.
Mhm.
And so, 1 in 5 women will experience this, and dads can experience this too,
Yeah.
just as a side note, right? But there's also postpartum anxiety. So,
Mhm.
postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, postpartum OCD, postpartum psychosis. Like these are the ones that are unfamiliar to the general public, but still really common in my world. But
Yeah.
I'm thinking about like what you're seeing in pregnancy and these like nervous system signs can actually be an indicator that somebody might
Mhm.
struggle with postpartum anxiety, OCD, depression
Yep.
postpartum. And
Yep.
so, kind of going back to this like circle of care idea, I just love when we are able to collaborate because you're able to then tell me, hey, like I'm noticing this tension.
Mhm.
And then I can be on the lookout and help to support our clients during pregnancy,
Yeah.
hopefully, right? Around maybe anxiety or worries or fear or nervous system regulation, or even preparing for like birth or helping to solve and work through some post or birth trauma previously,
Yeah.
right? So I
And
just love the collaborative nature of it.
those are all things that is what healthcare is supposed to be. We are
Mhm.
supposed to it's not, "Oh, I fix everything."
Yep.
That is such a huge well, there's 2 problems that I see with healthcare. It's, "Oh, I
Mhm.
fix everything, and if it can't be fixed by me, then sorry, like, good luck."
Mhm.
Or there is the over referring where it's like, "Oh, well, we tried this, it didn't work, go to this provider. Okay, that provider sent me to this provider." And then the patient gets frustrated because no one
Mhm.
is hearing them or actually able to help them.
Yep.
And so that's where collaborative care is so important because I might see something,
Mhm.
for example, you'd ask like some signs that the nervous system's not regulating or
Mhm.
working the way that it's supposed to. Breathing patterns are huge for us.
Mhm. Mhm.
So if mom is constantly breathing in a rapid pace, that
Mhm.
can create, yes, a physiological issue, but it also creates more of a chemical issue in mom's not getting enough
Yeah.
oxygen. It's not getting enough oxygen to her brain, which means that the baby's not getting enough oxygen. So then we
Yep.
already have a deficit, right? And that happens when mom feels like she's stuck in a sympathetic state. So
Mhm.
sympathetic is you're running from a bear in the woods and you've
Mhm.
got to get out because that bear is going to eat you. You were meant to be in that state for a short period of time.
Mhm.
When you calm down and you feel safe and you're like, okay, I'm out of the woods. We're good. The bear is gone. I can chill. That's called parasympathetic. The difference between the two is huge. And a lot of times today, people get stuck in that sympathetic dominant state, which I'm sure you
Yep.
see
All the
all the
time.
time. Yes, all the
Yep.
time. I see it as well. And that's where I see women, especially during pregnancy, or not even just pregnancy, but during different hormonal shifts throughout their cycle,
Mhm. Mhm.
their breathing patterns will literally change and they can't regulate. And I think that that is a huge tool that, whether it
Mhm.
be with you or with another
Mhm.
counselor, someone that can
Mhm.
help them learn those tools to be able to read. Oh my gosh. To learn those tools to be able to breathe properly
Yep.
can help mitigate or limit those other postpartum things that you had discussed. Like anxiety is a huge one.
Yep.
So women aren't able to prepare for that necessarily on their own. Like sometimes you need help with that.
Yeah,
So,
and so much of anxiety really is, from my view, it's sympathetic dominance, but
mhm,
also, like, low self-worth and low self-esteem, and so
mhm.
when you think about this massive identity shift and change that happens in motherhood, like, man, of course you're gonna feel inadequate. Of course
Yeah.
feel less than. This is something completely new,
Mhm.
right? And so when you just the combination of a dysregulated nervous system plus this massive identity shift, and lack of sleep and
Yeah,
hormonal changes and, recovering physically
yeah, and body changes.
and body changes and having to keep a human alive, of course, it's like the perfect spot for some kind of really, like, PMAD is what we call them, a perinatal
Mhm.
mental health, disorder, but of course, it's like the perfect breeding ground for it,
Yeah,
and so if you have any kind of precursor to anxiety or depression, your risk is, like, tenfold for this
yeah.
postpartum.
Which, again, knowing that ahead of time can help you prepare and then not turn and a lot of times I think what's missed, and correct me if you see something different, but, is postpartum, it can start as more anxiety and then shift and transition into more depression because of that self-worth, because they feel
Mhm,
like, "Okay, well, I shouldn't not want my sister-in-law to hold my baby. Like, that's like,
mhm,
why am I so anxious about this? Or I shouldn't not want this." Like, you put
mhm,
yourself in this this state of what is wrong with me, and then it turns into more of a depressive state, which then can turn manic and become
mhm.
way I shouldn't even say more dangerous because both are dangerous, but can become more detrimental to the baby or the mom.
Yeah, we see it really go both ways, honestly. And a lot of times, like somebody who is maybe more predisposed to anxiety will start off like having kind of what you're saying, like, oh,
Yeah.
I don't want to pass the baby to be held, or just really, I'm going to say this word gently, but truly like
Mhm.
obsessive about sleeping
Yeah.
patterns and feeding patterns, right? And not sleeping because they're fearful of something that's going to happen to the baby, right? So we can see it happen like that. But then because you're in that state for so long, it becomes depression because you're just
Yeah.
exhausted by
You're just
always
stuck.
having your thoughts consumed, right? And then, like, you feel
Mhm.
disconnected to baby, you feel disconnected to the people around you because your thoughts are just so consumed in this way. And
Yeah.
so it can lead to depression in that way, or it can start as depression where they feel like they're just numb or can't bond or connect with baby. And so much of that really is hormonal. Like, there's a
Mhm.
huge hormonal component there and lack of sleep. But then you just feel isolated and lonely,
Yeah.
right? And so, like and that can even then shift to anxiety because you're like, "Am I a good mom? Am I doing
Yeah.
what I'm supposed to be doing?" Supposed to in air
Yeah.
quotes, right? But, like,
Mhm.
it goes both ways, and even, like, OCD can tack on there too, and it's just having somebody that you trust to walk through these things with you to tell you like, "Hey, this is really common and this is what's normal," and it could just be such a game changer. The amount of moms I have that come to me and come to our practice and they're, like, scared to say certain thoughts that they have. Like, I've just learned at this point just to name the really scary
Yeah.
thoughts
Mhm.
because then they're like, "Oh, yeah, that too," and I'm like, "Yeah, like, that's really common and that's actually a sign of this," right? And so
Yeah. And
they
it's
just
okay that you're having those
Yes,
thoughts because 1, you're talking to somebody about it,
yes.
and 2, they're because you've acknowledged it, that is the first step to be able to, 1, help it become then a fleeting thought and it not linger, and then 2, make sure that it doesn't turn into some form of action, which is
Yep.
huge. One and this is a harder topic, but and I know we talked about it, previously, but one thing that I wanted to bring up to you is working with women who have experienced loss in pregnancy.
Mm,
What have you found in your experience has, I guess, helped them recover to be able to then be confident enough to try again?
mhm.
Or what what would you recommend not doing? Like
Yeah.
what are some tools here? Because I know this is a tough topic, but it I see it all the time in practice because we work
Yep.
with women on being able to get pregnant, because they come to us because they've been struggling for a long time or they've had multiple losses. So I'd love to be able to give some advice on, okay, here's a tool that you can keep moving
Yep.
forward.
Yeah, and really, like, I'm not trying to be vague here, but I do feel like it depends on the woman and their own experience, right? And, like, their partner's experience if they are partnered of the loss as well as and, like, because I could just use myself an example. So
Mhm,
my first pregnancy before I had my daughter, I had a loss, and
mhm.
that loss for me was, like, devastating, and my immediate reaction was like, "I wanna try again."
Okay.
Right? But then, before my son, I had another loss, and at that point, it didn't affect me much, like, I was
Mhm.
like I don't know. I don't know if it's because I had had a loss prior to that and I kind of knew what was gonna happen. It
Yeah.
wasn't as jarring, but, I'm one person who had 2 losses and they felt very different, right? And so what I did with those losses was also different.
Okay.
And so I think it really depends on how the person is internalizing that experience, right? But I think let's just say it is somebody who is like, "No, this was a really devastating loss." I
Mhm.
think, like, if they're identifying that, then some things that I could think about and recommend would be, 1, it's normal to both wanna get pregnant right away
Mm.
and also be really fearful of getting pregnant
Yep.
again. Both of those things are normal, and you might experience those, like, in the same day.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Right, and so, like, really just validating that, like, there is no normal when it comes to grief and loss, and that's, with pregnancy loss, stillbirth, infant loss, NICU loss, but also, like, even just any kind of loss
Mhm.
of identity, of, a parent, of a friend, loss and grief, like, there's no, "This is how you do it."
Mhm. Yeah.
Right? And so I think part of it is just honoring your own experience and being willing to kind of ride the wave with grief and, like, then there is the thing, okay, let's just say you do wanna get pregnant again. I have yet to see a pregnant person who is pregnant again after loss who's not anxious.
Okay. So
I
that.
think it's just par for the course,
Mhm.
which, like, at that point what it feels like to go through something so devastating where, like, you really wanted something and it was ripped away from you. Of course, your body is gonna be fearful of that happening again, even if your mind has all the rational
Mhm.
tools, right? Because like you said earlier, the body keeps the score.
Mhm.
The body remembers loss, right? The body remembers what it's like to feel super excited about something, then have that taken away. So I think just, like, also normalizing that anxiety is probably going to exist in your pregnancy the next time around, and, like, there are tools that we use for that, but also just knowing that that is common and really normal.
Yeah. Well, and knowing that and setting up because again, this whole podcast is about how can I set up my toolkit? Like
Yep,
for everything else, I mean, trust me, my entire dining room is full of postpartum like ice packs and things.
yep,
I didn't even know these existed. But like, yes, do I have the ice packs and like the nipple guards to wear during
yep,
postpartum? Absolutely. But do I have the toolkit for them, like what you can't see, which is more of the emotional?
yep,
That's something that I think every woman who wants to carry a child and birth
mhm,
a child has to consider. So, in knowing that, that's
mhm,
very helpful because if they have experienced loss before in a pregnancy, then that is I would almost say like a non-negotiable. Like, listen, you've
mhm,
experienced loss, like you need to have somebody on your team in your toolkit that you can talk to and trust and work through these anxious emotions with because again, the baby's borrowing your physiology
mhm.
while they're in utero.
Yep,
So it
and, like,
nurses.
moms deserve to have a really peaceful, restful pregnancy and
Yeah.
postpartum experience.
Yeah, that was very selfish of me to say it that way where, "Oh, it's the baby's borrowing your physiology." No, it's about mom too.
But
Um,
I think, like, that
mhm.
really speaks to, and I'm not calling you out here, but I think it's important
Yeah,
to just know the language
yeah,
because what happens is this is exactly what
yeah,
providers fall into,
mhm,
right? Where it's like, we forget about mom, and I
yep,
even do it too. Like,
mhm,
a mom brings in a snuggly newborn baby, and I'm like, "Oh my god, how are they? Like,
yeah,
how's it going? Are they eating well? Are they sleeping? What are you
mhm,
noticing?" Sometimes I have to, like, "Hey, Brooke,
yeah,
mom's right there.
yep.
Like, check on her too." So it's so common for us to do that.
Yeah, no, I like I said, I just literally did it, because that's a mother's instinct is to take care of everybody else first,
Yep,
and then, "Oh, I'll get to me eventually." But guess what? You never actually get to you until
yep,
we call them body whispers versus body screams in our office. So the body will give whispers every single
mhm,
day, but when it finally gets to a scream is by the
mhm,
time that you actually start to listen because it shuts down.
yep,
So that's like the red alarm, like, "Hey, I can't do this any longer. I need help."
mhm,
And sometimes it's too late by that point to get back the pre-scream status is what we'll call it, but ultimately knowing ahead of time that, okay, I've had a loss. I
mhm,
know that this created a lot of anxiety initially,
mhm,
um, following the loss as it should.
mhm,
Um, setting someone in place to be able to work through that, I think would
Mhm.
be huge for people just to like listen to this and take that away. That would, I think, help so much. But
Yeah. And a really just quick tangible tool that I think it doesn't solve a lot, but it helps in the moment is
Mhm.
something I would tell myself over and over and over again, and I tell my clients to tell themselves too, is like, no matter what given moment you're in
Yeah.
during your pregnancy, and if you're feeling anxious after a loss, if you can say to yourself, if I was 100% sure that I was going to meet this baby, and I usually would say the name, right? If I was
Mhm.
100% sure that I was going to meet my daughter, Sophia, what
Mhm.
would I be doing in this moment instead?
Okay.
Right? So maybe I'm in like, I remember so much in the shower, I was really anxious, and I think it's just because like, my belly was right there, and my
Mhm.
thoughts were quiet, right? And I would be, like, worried, like, "Oh my gosh, like, what's gonna happen if, like, I had a loss tomorrow? Or what would
Yeah.
happen if, like, I'd have to tell everybody?" And I would, like, plan and rehearse in my head
Mhm.
what I would do, and so then I would literally say, "Okay, if I knew 100% that I was gonna meet her, what would I be doing right now?" And oftentimes,
Mhm.
I'd be like, "Oh, I'm gonna plan my baby shower," or I
Yeah.
would be planning, like, my maternity photo shoot, or
Yeah.
I'd be thinking about what I'm gonna decorate in her nursery, or I'd be touching my
Mhm.
belly and connecting with her, right?
That
And
is
so
such a good tool. I love that.
yeah, it's just a mindset shift, and, like, it doesn't necessarily take the pain away, but it gives your mind something else to do in those moments when it's finding something to do.
And it's something that normalizes your pregnancy and makes it almost
Yep.
like takes away the fear of it. Because so
Yeah.
much of pregnancy is fear in general, whether
Yeah.
it's
True.
you're high risk or you're not.
Yep.
But it's a very fear based thing. And then there's birth, which is a whole other sense of fear. But no, it's going to be great. It's going to be super easy. I just
It won't be easy, but it can be smooth.
okay, smooth. Yes, we'll use smooth. But that's such a great tool, even if for those that aren't pregnant, for those
Mhm.
that have kids, whenever you're behind closed doors and your kids are sleeping and you're staying awake at night thinking about bills or work or,
Yep.
oh my gosh, like, is my child's getting bullied on the playground? Like all the things that
Yep.
you don't have control over,
Yep.
so laying there in bed and not resting and thinking through that, that creates nervous system dysregulation. That
Mhm.
is where our bodies break down. And a
Yep.
dysregulated nervous system, it unless there is a break in the cycle, it'll just keep going. It's on
Yep.
repeat. And
Yeah.
so and yes, there is a hormonal component, there is an emotional component, and there's a
Mhm.
physical component. But at the
Yep.
end of the day, it starts with that dysregulation. So that's a great tool for even women who, anyone, men as well, to be able to redirect and think, okay, or if my child was sitting right next to me,
Mhm.
watching me be anxious, would I be doing the same thing that I'm doing right now, or
Mhm.
would I be more calm, cool, and collected because I don't want them to pick up on it? And most of
Yeah.
the time, that's what moms especially are going to say.
Yeah, and so much of anxiety or dysregulation, and I think those things can go hand in hand, is fear of the unknown. But the
Mhm.
reality is we don't have any control over
No.
the unknown or even the future, right?
Yeah.
And so the more that we're spending a lot of emotional energy thinking about the what ifs in the negative way. So a lot of what I challenge people to do is think about what ifs in the positive way.
Yeah.
If you're going to
That's
spend
such
the
a good
energy,
point.
spend it over here.
Yeah. No, that's I'm gonna need you to cut that part out so my husband can't hear it. Just kidding. But that really is a good point because like you said, like what would I be doing right now if
Mhm.
I knew for an absolute fact that I was gonna meet Sophia
Yep.
tomorrow, right? And there's so many other things that you could be excited and happy about
Yep.
rather than worrying and again creating that unsafe environment for the baby and for
Yep.
yourself. See, I didn't
Yeah.
forget that time.
There you go.
So that is one thing. I know we talked a little bit about hormones whenever we first chatted,
Yep.
and that is one thing that I know you work with a functional medicine doctor down there,
Yep.
and then also we do functional medicine in our office too. But um, I always tell everyone that I wasn't expecting to get pregnant this quickly, which was kind of silly because I've checked my hormones every year and made sure that everything, if levels were low, then I took supplements or I changed my diet or I made sure I've been very active the last 5 years, knowing that I wanted to be a mom and having a fear
Mhm.
of having a loss.
For sure.
And going through that grief process. But one thing that I highly recommend in regards to the toolkit
Mhm,
is if women are wanting to conceive, especially in the next year, please get your hormones checked.
mhm,
That is
mhm,
number one. And there are two ways that you really need to look at hormones there is urine, and then there's blood.
hmm,
Unfortunately, insurance usually only covers one,
mhm.
but well, that's a conversation for another time. But I can help you navigate like through that a little bit. But urine will tell you what your body is utilizing. Blood will tell you what your body's making. So there's a big
Mhm,
difference between the two. So for me in my postpartum toolkit, within the first like as soon as my cycle comes back, then the first thing I'm doing is doing a hormone test to look
mhm,
at, even though I'll still be breastfeeding, hopefully,
mhm,
to look at, okay, what's my body producing? What am I uptaking? And do I need to supplement in any way to make sure that one, I can maintain my milk production? My
mhm,
thyroid's good. Um, Postpartum hair loss is common, it's not normal. Just keep that in mind.
mhm.
But there's usually some kind of hormonal shift, and we live in a chaotic world. Sometimes we just need supplementation or a specific diet plan for us. So that's something that I personally have in my toolkit
Love it.
that I would love for more women to know about rather than waiting until the body starts screaming and
Yep.
they have clumps of hair falling out. And then they decide, oh, maybe I should get my thyroid checked, right?
Mhm.
So there are things you can do ahead of time to make sure that, and that's just one example that that doesn't happen, and that the drastic drop is more of like a low grade fall. So
Yeah, I love
that's
that, that's great.
that's one of my toolkit advice pieces, as well as making sure that you have a good support team around you, whether it's family, whether it's friends, just people to help reduce stress,
Yep.
because that's gonna play a huge role too.
I'm curious, like, I have my non-negotiables for, like, people you should be connected with prior to
Mhm.
giving birth. Do you
Yeah,
have a list?
I do. So it depends though. Everything depends.
Mhm,
Um, it depends completely on what the the parents' goals are. So if their goal is to breastfeed, like
mhm,
for example, not everyone wants to breastfeed or even has the ability to, right?
mhm,
But if I have a mom who is like, no, I want to breastfeed, that is going to be a huge piece of me feeling like I'm serving my baby and myself. Then okay, that's your goal. Let's make it happen, right?
mhm,
And if you struggle, let's have a backup plan that you still feel fulfilled. Like,
mhm,
is it you're not able to breastfeed, but you're able to pump and you
mhm,
can still give your baby the nutrients that way? Or you're not able to do either, but you know someone who will give you donor milk.
mhm,
So you just have the tools in place on, okay, if not this, then that.
mhm,
So for that person specifically, I would recommend they have like a functional nutritionist of some form to make sure they're
mhm,
getting enough nutrients. That they meet, they either take a breastfeeding class and or usually both. They meet with a breastfeeding specialist so that they can, or lactation consultant, so they can
mhm,
teach them. And then also, which as long as they're a pediatric chiropractor, they can not check for this, but make sure that when the baby's born, that they don't have oral ties that can limit the baby's ability to be able to latch, because then that can reduce production right off the bat. So
mhm,
those are the four people for that specific case,
mhm,
which I think is probably pretty common. That really is
mhm,
a lot of what I see is a huge goal for moms is they want to be able to breastfeed.
mhm,
So those would probably be the four that I would be my highest recommendation. And then a non-negotiable for postpartum recovery is chiropractor, pelvic
mhm.
floor PT, and someone emotionally, whether it's a counselor or someone in their life that, which I just say counselor because if
Mhm.
you give them options, then they're like, oh, yeah, I talk to my sister once a week. I'm like, okay, wow. My sister's great too, but
Yep.
she's not going to be able to work you through some postpartum anxiety, for example.
Mhm,
Um,
mhm.
but so those are my three, I would say, non negotiables if they're just in general. But then
Yeah,
I usually have a few additional if it's goal specific. If that makes
yeah.
sense.
Yeah, I echo all of that. I
Mhm.
think that's pretty much what we recommend. I would say one additional is some kinda community support. So,
Ah,
like, I
yeah.
love the bunny hive. I think that's a great place if you
Mhm,
have them around you to go to, or
mhm.
like a small group at church or, like, just some part of some kind
Yeah,
of community system
yeah.
where you feel seen and held and they can, like, wrap around you. It might be a neighborhood group, it might be who knows, right?
Which I'm so glad you brought that up because I just learned about your postpartum group,
Yes.
which now is part of my non-negotiables, um, but it hasn't met yet, since we talked last. But, can you talk a little bit more about that? Because it completely slipped my mind. Mhm,
Yeah, and honestly, this group was born from the need of, "Whoa, we need community postpartum, like, everybody's super lonely, we're going through all this, like, crazy stuff, and nobody's talking about it." So, we have our it's free, it's postpartum support group, and right now it's meeting twice a month. It's once a month virtually, and then once a month in person. We do it at the Bunny Hive just because I
mhm.
love that
Yeah,
spot. But our goal is to get it to be weekly, and we just get together and we talk about it's hosted with Regenerate Physiotherapy, which is a pelvic floor
mhm,
therapist in Peachtree City, and so we just get together with moms who are sometimes pregnant but up to 2 years postpartum, and we
mhm,
just talk about like what's going on, right? Like what kind of physical things are you wanting to work through? What kind of emotional stuffs are
yeah.
coming up that we want to work through? It's a great place for people to connect with other moms, to get to meet friends. It's just been a really special place that we've been hanging out for the last couple of years.
Which is so cool because like, it takes a village to raise a child,
Oh, yeah.
and I think that there is a second part to that statement that is often not said, and it takes the right village to raise a child
Mhm.
because you can have
Absolutely.
tons of people around you, but if they're not healthy themselves, then you necessarily want them being a part of your child's care growing up.
Yeah,
And that's a really hard discernment and boundary to set.
yeah.
Um, and I think a lot of people probably struggle with that. So having a group and somewhere you can go that feels like a safe space and it's moms that are going through the same things that you are,
Mhm.
is I mean, it's immeasurable. That's
It
just
is.
something that you can't replace with anything. So I
Yeah,
think that
I
is so
don't know
awesome.
yeah, I don't know where I would be without my mom friends,
Yeah.
truly. Like, I can't even imagine a world that I don't have a group text that I can
Mhm.
text and be like, "Oh my gosh, this, like, crazy
Yeah.
thing happened. My daughter smeared poop all over the wall."
Oh
Like,
my gosh, no.
nobody
You
else
can't
is
do
gonna
that.
understand that, right? But, like, exactly, like, on the outside, it's like, "What? That's crazy." But, like, my friends are following up like, "Yeah, been there. Use this cleaning
Mhm. Oh
product,"
my
or
gosh.
right, it just makes you feel like, "Okay, my child's
Mhm.
not crazy, like, this is
Yeah,
normal. I'm not a bad mom, this is normal," right?
yeah.
And it's such a validating spot to be when we have this community and just, like, tangible, like, the amount of times I'm a working mom, so I've had to work
Mhm.
and something came up and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, can I just, like, bring my kid over for an
Yeah,
hour?" And, same for my friends, like, they're like, "I have to do this really important call, can I drop off my kid?" I'm like, "Absolutely," right? It's
yeah.
just tangible, or if our husbands are traveling because we all have traveling husbands for work, like, I'm like, "Let's get together." It makes it feel
Mhm.
less lonely. It makes the time
Yeah.
pass faster. Like, there's just so much support that happens in community groups.
Which is where and that creates not to go all, like, physiology nerd on you, but that creates a spike in oxytocin.
Mhm.
Which is one of the most important things in our brain to be able to feel a sense of safety, which
Yeah.
I started the entire conversation with talking about safety,
Mhm.
and that is such a lost feeling in our world
Yep.
today because which we digressed, but there are just so many things that make us feel unsafe,
Yep.
and then you're raising a child n with you not feeling safe and secure, so then they grow up with a state of not having security, and then that creates a whole which again, there's nothing I don't want anyone to think that there's something wrong with you. That is
Mhm.
not what I'm saying. It's that
Yep.
we just have to be very aware of the world around us and the world that we're living in because then we can put tools in place and catch ourselves whenever we're making choices or putting ourselves in situations or reacting a certain way
Mhm.
that helps prevent our children from kind of growing up with the same thing that we experienced, right? One of
Yeah.
our quotes we have in our office is go ahead, leave your kids at home so they can experience the same health disparities that you are. And it's very aggressive, but it's really true. It's okay,
Yeah.
what could I do to make sure that my child doesn't go
Mhm.
through the same thing that I'm now having to unwind? Remember the
Yep.
nervous system being stuck?
Yep.
So how can I help them so that it helps me at the end of the day be the best version of myself?
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah, absolutely. I just thought of one more non-negotiable too,
okay.
a couples therapist if you're
Ah,
partnered.
yes, we can keep this part for my husband. He should hear this. No.
I think there's so much
Mhm.
value in having somebody the first year postpartum for a couple,
Mhm.
for a marriage, a relationship is so challenging.
Yeah.
There are just so many identity shifts for both partners, right?
Yeah.
And lack of sleep, getting cranky,
Mhm.
right? A lack of understanding of what the other person's going through because this is a completely new
Yeah.
experience, right? There's just so much baked in there that
Yeah.
having a couples therapist who can help you navigate what it's like to go through these changes together. And you have to renegotiate your
Mhm.
system, your family system, right?
Yeah.
What are their roles and how are they going to change? How do you expect each other to show up in this season of life?
Yeah.
Everything has to be renegotiated and it's a really easy for one or both partners to check out in a
Yeah.
marriage at this point because you are I mean, it's survival mode, honestly,
Mhm.
right? And so what happens when we go to survive? We turn inward, and so it's really easy to just stay inward, and then sex typically is, like, one of the first things to go,
Mhm.
especially if somebody's breastfeeding, it just is, like, out the window, but then that causes a lot of relational disruption,
Yeah.
right? And that's one element. Then there's,
Yeah.
like, the mental load, right? Who's carrying it? What's the resentment there? There's just so many things that feel imbalanced and, off
Yeah.
during the postpartum period between couples.
And again, that's something that during pregnancy can be established and set up. It's like,
Yep.
okay, um, 1 month before you're due, you guys need to start um,
Mhm.
a couples therapy so that you can make sure that you're on the same page for when this baby's born and not wait until, again, sirens start going off.
Yep.
And so, I mean, I don't know the stats off the top of my head, but I do know that the statistics of couples getting divorced when after they have
Mhm.
kids are through the
Mhm.
roof
Yep.
because it just changes everything. It
Yep.
changes your entire being, which again, kids are beautiful and amazing and that's how families grow and I'm not saying that they cause issues, but they
Mhm.
just cause change.
Yep.
And in both good and sometimes negative ways and when it comes to a relationship.
Yeah, I mean, we know statistically that 50% of marriages fail, like,
Yes.
that is
Mhm.
really widely known. Somebody else just told me the statistic that of the 50% of people that are still married, only, like, 25% of those people reported being happy in their
That
marriage. Yeah.
That's so and again, this is what I'm whenever I said about we have to be aware of the world that we live in
Yep.
and the lack of safety and security, knowing
Yep.
that stat does not make me feel warm and fuzzy.
Right.
Honestly, in my head, I'm like, "Okay, I'm happy, right? Like, he's happy, like, we're good."
Mhm.
But it's like that then provokes anxiety, and then it can
Mhm.
create even, more of a sense of insecurity, and then that just again, the nervous system cycle, and then
Yep.
it's stuck. That is one thing that in our office, since we are a family-based office, so we see grandma, grandpa, we see
Mhm.
mom and dad, we see kids, and the youngest I've ever checked was a 9 pound home birth, 12 hours old. So we go the whole range, right?
Mhm.
Um, and we're very big on, and of course we can't force, but we highly, highly encourage, especially during pregnancy, that the spouse or partner or whoever is involved in that person's life, their
Mhm.
accountability person, whoever's going
Yep.
to help them with that baby and help them postpartum and help them as a mom, we encourage them to come and go over their results with them so that
Mhm.
one, we have somebody who cares about them more than themselves
Yep.
because when you become pregnant, it changes. You are
Yep.
just focused on the baby. So I need someone who's going to care more about mom than mom.
Mhm.
And two, it helps them see that it takes the pressure off of mom because we talk about the dynamic
Mhm.
and how it's impacting the baby. It's not just how mom is impacting the baby, it's the dynamic. So,
Absolutely.
in a perfect world, I have mom and dad under care. That is
Mhm.
ideal because that means that they're both regulating the way that they're supposed to, and that creates the best environment for baby. It doesn't always happen that way, but that is.
Mhm.
I wish I could make it a non-negotiable, um, but it's not always realistic. So we at least try to have the partner, spouse, whoever that person is, there so that they can understand and get a better sense of, oh, I didn't realize like this much was impacting you.
Yeah,
So that then they're just on the same page.
I love that.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of, like, rapid fire, like, last minute
Mhm.
before we close, like, toolkit things you need to have,
Yeah.
and I've thought of a couple in my brain. So one is plan for a C-section even if you don't want one.
Ah, okay.
So know what if you had to switch to an emergency C-section, what would that look like, and
Yeah.
what would your postpartum care look like because of that?
Yeah,
And
'cause
make sure
it is
you
very different physically and
Yes.
emotionally.
Yep.
Mhm.
Especially, like, if it was unexpected, like, there's gonna
Mhm.
be, oftentimes there's grief and loss with that,
Mhm.
and so, like, I just see so many times moms were like, "I'm not gonna want that," or I'm not gonna have
Mhm.
that," and then for whatever reason, it happens, and it's just devastating,
Mhm.
right? Because there wasn't preparation for it, but if you felt
Mhm.
empowered of like, "Well, if it did go to this is what I would ask for, this is what I would do,"
Yep.
the outcomes often are really different because you had choice and decision in that, so
And one thing to add to that, so
Mhm.
prepping for a C-section, one thing you can do that not a lot of people know about is you can actually start collecting colostrum at some people can collect it at like 36 weeks, which
Mhm.
more power to them. That's impressive. But you can collect colostrum at least at 38,
Mhm.
and having those vials of colostrum, well, if you have a C-section, you're not necessarily your baby may be taken away for a period of time,
Mhm.
just to make sure that the baby's good. Mom obviously has to go to post-op recovery,
Yep.
um, but you can have someone in place that makes sure that that baby, the first ounce of food that they're getting is your colostrum. So again, prepping for that and having that in place. If mom's goal is that she wants to be able to breastfeed, that's
Mhm.
huge. Knowing that her baby was able to get her colostrum while she was recovering and she was still being able to serve the child, even though she
Yep.
wasn't physically breastfeeding in that moment. So,
Yep.
just another like rapid fire.
Yeah. There's a lot of things in a C-section that you can ask for that, like,
Mhm.
you can ask for a clear drape so you can see the birth
Yes.
happening.
Mhm.
You can ask for skin to skin immediately in the OR. Your
Mhm.
partner can be in the OR. Like,
Yeah.
there's a lot of things that they tell you is not okay, that if you push for it and you say it's a non-negotiable for me, they will allow it. I had
Yeah.
a C-section with my first, she was a breech pregnancy, and, I was like, "I wanna have the most home birth C-section
Mhm.
that I can have,"
Yes.
right? And so, I can't imagine my husband not being in the room with me, but, like, that's a really common experience.
Yeah. No, it is. And with C-sections in particular, I always whenever moms come in and we're because we do birth planning. So I have an entire document that we'll lay out, and I would say have multiple copies. You have a copy,
Yep.
your husband has a copy, and then if you have a doula or someone that's going to be with you at the birth, they have a copy too.
Mhm. Okay.
You have to be okay with it shifting. So even though it says, I do not want any interventions, that doesn't
Mhm.
mean that they're not going to happen because at the end of the day, your goal is not to have a birth, your goal is to have a baby.
Mhm.
And if that ends up with you having the baby via C-section, that's okay. That
Mhm.
is totally fine. Um, you just have to again have the tools in place to know how to prep and be okay with mourning that you didn't get the birth that you wanted,
Mhm.
but being okay with the outcome is I got the baby that that was really my ultimate goal.
Mhm.
So I think that is a huge piece. I'm glad you brought that up as we wrap up because that can be something that women mourn
Yeah.
after birth not going the way that they expected.
Absolutely. Other rapid fire real quick, postpartum doula, definitely look into it. It
Yes.
can be such a great resource, especially for sleep.
Mhm.
Boundaries, like a lot of postpartum prep is actually just communication, right?
Yeah.
Talking to in-laws, talking to the people around you. How often can they see the baby? How soon after birth can they see the
Mhm.
baby? Do you have any boundaries on holding what it's gonna look like for people to touch the baby? Like, all of these things need to be communicated, otherwise issues will show up.
Yeah. Oh, and
Similarly. Oh, go ahead.
that's very valid. And you know what? I didn't even think about that until recently. Well, because
Mhm.
I'm 36 and a half weeks.
Yep,
And so now the conversations are coming up on, okay, when are we going to let people see the baby?
yep.
And I know a lot of that is you don't know until you're in that situation.
Mhm.
But my husband and I just, full disclosure, had the conversation last night on, hey,
Yep.
okay, so let's prep and plan for this. Like they
Mhm.
can come over and see the baby on, like, we'll say 2 days after or 1 day after.
Yep.
But we need to have the conversation with them. And he was funny. He's like, yeah, 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 I'm fine having that conversation then. I was like, well, no, I think we need to have that conversation now so that,
Mhm.
and we'll just let them know, like, hey, the plan is we're going to let you come over here,
Mhm.
but just keep an open mind that if it's a really long labor and we're exhausted and Shaylee can't get out of bed, then
Mhm.
it might be 2 or 3 days later. That
Mhm.
way, everyone's just prepared. And then no
Yep.
one's hurt by the fact that they're waiting and anticipating. And then all of a sudden it's like, actually, you can't come over.
Yep.
So I think that
Exactly.
that's huge on setting those boundaries, on being okay with it changing, but also knowing what you want right now.
Yep, and, like, what kind of support that they can provide,
Uh-huh.
like, that
Yeah.
you're comfortable with, because if you don't feel comfortable, maybe you're breastfeeding out in the living room, you
Yeah.
might not wanna have your father-in-law there, I don't know.
Mhm. Yeah.
So just kinda thinking through what feels comfortable, what feels helpful, and being okay to say, like, "This isn't helpful anymore,"
Yeah.
and so, like, to your point, I'd like to change this part of the
Yeah.
boundary.
I think that, and then setting time limits too. So, okay, I know that I have to breastfeed every 2 hours.
Mhm.
So, if I'm having someone come over, they can stay for 30 minutes. It gives me like an hour
Yep,
and a half to relax and kind of recuperate because I know I'm going to have to breastfeed because the baby's waking up again, right?
yep,
So I think just time limits and boundaries are so important in that toolkit.
yep.
Um, and then making sure that those that you are letting, you're keeping your circle small on
Mhm.
who you're allowing into that space during especially those first 2 weeks.
Yep.
When if it's your first baby, especially, you and your husband are trying to figure out how to be parents because
Mhm.
it is it is very different.
Mhm. Yeah,
Cool.
absolutely.
Okay, well, thank you. As we wrap up, I feel like we just touched on so many huge topics. So thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me. I know you're a mom of two and you run a business and you just moved. And that's not even including your hobbies. So I know you're a super busy person, but I think this was so valuable. And I think so many of my patients are going to benefit from listening and then just understanding what to do and how to build their toolkit because nobody
Mhm.
talks about that.
Yeah, likewise. I've just appreciated your insight, and I just know that you're gonna be such a great mom. I'm so excited for you. It's right around the corner, but truly,
No.
like, the fact that you know all this already is
Mhm.
just such a leg up in the experience.
Well, you helped me build my toolkit. I do have some details to iron out now, but definitely going to personally take away some of the things we talked about and then make sure that one, I'm practicing what I preach.
Yep.
And two, that some things that you had told me from your experience that I get to
Mhm.
implement. And again, the goal is that I'm healthy, baby's healthy, and we have a healthy marriage. That's really, at the end of the day, what we want for everyone. So
Yep, and you better go to postpartum support group.
I absolutely will be at postpartum support group. That is not even a question. Not the in person. That's a little bit of a hike for me,
Yep.
but virtual, count me in.
I love it. Yep.
Cool.
Awesome.
Alright,
Well,
well,
thank
thank you so
you.
much. Make sure you guys can check out, I know Brooke has her podcast posted on her website.
Yep.
I have our podcast, this will be posted on our YouTube channel, our Instagram link, and then also, on our Kids Healthcare Alliance website. So multiple ways to watch it. And then that is all.
Yeah, and to connect with us, all
Mhm.
things are at www.nurtureandbe.com. The podcast is listed there. Our services are listed there.
Mhm.
The support groups will be listed there soon. So everything is accessible there. And then I will also have this airing on my podcast, which is super exciting.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you so much. And I hope you have a great rest of your weekend.
You too.